Hello, friends. We are live. It is a beautiful afternoon, Sunday, August 2nd. We are in the back half of what is proving to be a wild 2020, one that we will never forget. But we have sports back. We are officially live with sports. And after about a weekend, I can say that it's been a successful restart on both leagues. Basketball is only a couple days in. Baseball is over a weekend. Yo, I'm clearly joking. Cleary joking. How's it going? Be sure to follow at 100 followers. We will be giving away a free hat from Lids, your choice. Do I think sports are rigged? I think certain aspects are rigged. I think the NBA has been rigging the draft on and off for the last 20 plus years. I think the lottery is rigged. I think that teams have done things to rig. Obviously the Astros cheating, the Red Sox cheating, which, by the way, Red Sox have remained under the radar in their cheating scandal. The Patriots, as much as I love Tom Brady and the Patriots, they have been rigging their sports for a while. Game winner shots are rigged. I think some players have a permanent cheat code. Damian Lillard. I think the game ending shots have been very interesting. If you look back to Kawhi's game winner, that definitely looks like maybe some Kawhi's game winner from last year's 76er series in Toronto. Hey, listen, would not surprise me. Would not surprise me at all. I think the draft where the Hornets, which they were the then New Orleans Hornets when they moved, I think that draft was rigged where they got Anthony Davis. There was way too much there for the league to gain by them getting the number one pick. Vetoing the Chris Paul trade to the Lakers, which was a bad trade. I think the Lakers weren't going to be giving up enough to make that trade worth it. I think Paul Gasol had to be in that trade, but Paul Gasol was, I think, their plan was to package him for Dwight Howard, so it would have been Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, and Kobe. Yeah, a weekend on sports, and we've had some good basketball games. The Lakers Clippers tipping off was super exciting, and I think that what we all expected and what we were all seeing from the NBA is some sloppy basketball, which is to be expected after such a layoff. These are essentially preseason games, and this is what you'd expect to see in a preseason game. I haven't seen the Heat play yet, but the Heat are my sleeper team to make it out of the East. I think what Jimmy Butler brings and what the Heat have cultivated there is exciting, and I'm really excited to see what they put together. But I think the Heat are the team to look out for in the East. In the West, it's a little more convoluted. The only thing about the Lakers is no Avery Bradley, no Rajon Rondo, and that you needed at least Avery Bradley for the guards on the Clippers to beat them. I think that is the concern for the Lakers is the loss of Avery Bradley and Rondo. Rondo to me wasn't the bigger loss. If I want one of them back, I want Avery Bradley back for what he brings to both sides of the court. I think LeBron now has to play point guard and potentially have to guard, some of the better point guards and shooting guards in the West. I don't think it's all doom and gloom like a lot of people are saying with the loss of Bradley and Rondo, because when you have LeBron, I really don't think you can ever count him out. I don't think you can ever count his team out until they're out. But I am concerned in a 5-7 game series that with the Clippers that they're just not going to match up well, and LeBron, by the time they get to the Western Conference Finals, could potentially be pretty worn down if he's having to play, 35 plus minutes a game, which I'm fully expecting to have to do now with no Rondo, no Bradley, and a lot hinges on how much the other players on that team step up. I thought Kyle Kuzma looked good in that game against the Clippers, but not what you expect out of your third star. And that's what he is. He's their third star. And so I'm concerned if I'm the Lakers. I'm not counting the season over, but I think there's reason to be concerned if I'm a Lakers fan right now or on that Lakers team. Are you really thinking Anthony Davis and LeBron can make it through an entire postseason having to play 35 to 40 minutes a game, and potentially more? There's going to be some overtime games. Between them and the Clippers, you saw how close that game was. In a 5 to 7 game series, I fully expect there to at least be one, if not two, overtime games, and those will be taxing on LeBron. As fresh as he is, we're talking a lot of games in a short time frame right now. Speaking of the NBA, James Harden, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, offensive player to ever play this game. But man, is that a horrible watch on TV. I cannot watch a Rockets game. I think James Harden is unwatchable. And that's why you've seen him flame out in the playoffs, because his game is suited around, is tailored around making contact, making players crash into him on his terms. So he gets to the line a lot. He's an amazing three-point shooter, excellent finisher, one of the hardest people to guard, which is why he's tailored his game the way he has, which is to creating contact, drawing contact, getting to the line. And in the playoffs, you're talking the better defenses are making the playoffs. The refs are calling less fouls, and that's why he flames out in the playoffs, because his game is tailor-made around what he's doing in the regular season. And I can't watch those games. I can't watch a guy flop around on the court for 40 minutes a game. That's not entertainment. I would love to see him just go lights out, something similar to what Steph Curry does, what the Warriors do, what Bradley Beal does, is just put on an offensive light show. I think he is entertaining to watch when he's playing that game, but when he plays this game where he's just trying to draw contact, just trying to create fouls, get himself to the foul line, it's the most boring thing to watch. I'd rather watch the San Antonio Spurs play. I'd rather watch paint dry. Watching the Rockets play is a challenge. LeBron going to get his 6th ring against the Nets. Next year will be interesting, man. Let's say he wins the ring wins this year. This is his best shot to win a championship for a while, because next year the Warriors come back strong. There's a lot of talk of the Lakers picking up a third star, but how do they do that? How do they get that third star? They have very little assets. Kyle Kuzma is really your only asset. And if I'm a team with Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine, Kyle Kuzma is not cutting it. I don't believe they have draft picks to trade because they use those to get Anthony Davis. That was the problem. They had to get Kawhi when Kawhi was a free agent. That way they sign him, trade for Anthony Davis, and then just pick up whatever they can around it. But now they have to trade for someone, and they just don't have assets. You got Kyle Kuzma and whatever picks you can offer 5 to 6 years down the line. Another thing is though, is these teams get creative. I don't know that anyone thought that the package Toronto gave up for Kawhi was going to be the package to get it done. There's been some pretty questionable packages given up for star players in the past. But I don't see, if I'm the Wizards, if I'm the Bulls, if I'm Portland, Kyle Kuzma's not getting it done for me. The NBA bubble has done something pretty spectacular, which is have no recorded cases of COVID-19. So I think it's very easy to say that the NBA bubble is the example of how to do this restart. I don't think it was going to be feasible to have even 2 sites for MLB, because you're talking a full season. So for teams that don't make the playoffs, you're 2 months away from your family. For teams that do make the playoffs, you're away from your family for 3 to 4 months. And for a lot of these guys, they have families, kids, wives that are pregnant, elderly family. So I don't think that you were going to get baseball players and then eventually football players to agree to a bubble situation. They don't want to be away from their families that long. Especially you're seeing there's a lot of them with pregnant wives, girlfriends. So the NBA bubble was unique. But there's something to be said for no positive tests in this bubble. It works. Limiting. Absolutely, sports are a distraction, both good and bad. They're a good distraction from what people I think are worried about right now, which is a virus that, in my opinion, is being a little overblown. Where they're a bad distraction is from things that actually matter: racial injustice, child and human trafficking in this world, drug addiction, drug problems, drug trafficking. So, yeah, I think they're a good and bad distraction. For someone like me, they give me something to talk about for what I hope will be a future career. I do want to make a career out of this. But it is a hobby, and it'll always be a hobby for me. It'll never be a job. I love talking about sports. I'll talk sports all day. But yes, I think that it can be a welcome distraction, but it can also be a problem. I think that we are, as a world, as a species, avoiding hard to talk about issues that need to be. We need to be talking about child and human trafficking. We need to be talking about drug trafficking. We do need to be talking about elite corruption. But every time something starts, look at the Wayfair situation. That there's no way that should have died down as quickly as it did. We're already moving on from the Wayfair thing. We're already moving on from Epstein's Island. Maxwell's been locked up now for a couple weeks, and the fact that she's still alive is pretty miraculous. I think she hasn't been suicided yet. Clintons haven't gotten their mitts on her. If LeBron wins a championship, it'll be all anyone talks about for a while. Yeah. 3 championships on 3 different championships on 3 different teams, 4 rings altogether. It'd be pretty impressive. I think it will then catapult him into the conversation with Michael Jordan, which, in my opinion, Michael Jordan is like Babe Ruth, a legend. Impossible for anyone really to ever approach that. Mike Trout probably will end up the better career player than Babe Ruth, but you're still going to see Puritans, players, fans still just obsessed with that memory of. And for someone like me, I never saw Babe Ruth play, never, barely have even seen footage. You just hear the tale. And LeBron is Illuminati. It's funny you say that, because I was just thinking the other day about how LeBron definitely strikes me as someone who's a part of this elite circle we have in this world that is shaping the world, is going to shape the world. You know, I've been very critical of LeBron, who has been a very big, outspoken person in regards to racial injustice, which, you know, I'm glad he is. I'm glad we have someone like LeBron advocating for social justice. But on the same token, he turned his back on China when the Hong Kong protests were going on, and he took the side of the Chinese government. And when the people in China started burning his jerseys and started you know, pretty much destroying him for taking that stance, all he said was, okay, I'm just not going to talk about this anymore. That's all he said. I'm just not going to talk about this anymore. Meanwhile, you want to talk about social injustice? The people in China are going through something unimaginable. A police state, and this is they are a prime example of how socialism does not work. And the government is just, you know, the people in China are not living a good life. And what is something you see on every NBA player's jersey right here? Almost every single one. I've noticed, you know, some do and some don't. But you see Wish right here on their jersey. And Wish is a company that has probably made millions, if not billions of dollars off of stealing copywritten and copyright protected merchandise. You know, anything you can think of is available on Wish for a fraction of the price of what you pay for it here. Now, granted, it's going to be lower quality, but they're essentially just ripping off American products. And there's no copyright protection in China. They will not. China's government will not do anything about copyright laws. And so you have the NBA promoting a company which essentially rips off American products. And the NBA is supporting it. They're allowing the name Wish on their jerseys, and that company just rips off American products, essentially undermining capitalism. They do. China does own America. And I'm not a Trump supporter, man. As a human being, I think he's terrible. As a businessman, as a president, I think he's amazing. And you're seeing Donald Trump threaten the lives and the way of living of a lot of politicians. These politicians who have been in bed with China and other foreign governments for decades. And Trump is coming in and he is threatening their way of life and their way of living. And that's why I think they are so adamant about getting him out. You know, they wanted to impeach him over publicly stating that he wanted to investigate Hunter Biden. No, I don't think Trump's on the left. I don't think Trump's on either side. He's in the middle because even Republicans don't like him. And the only Republicans that are having his back is because he is a Republican and they feel an obligation to have his back. But you know, I think Trump is threatening the way of living for a lot of these career politicians who have not only made a fortune being a politician, but have made a fortune being in bed with foreign governments, with pharmaceutical companies, you know, keeping weed from being legalized. You know, tell me why something that has nothing but healing properties like marijuana is continued to be blocked from being legalized, federally legalized, yet these same politicians are okay with opioids. These same politicians are not addressing the opioid crisis we have going on in this country with the street drugs that are running rampant. You know, 2,000 tons of cocaine are 2,000 tons of cocaine are shoveled into the United States every year. That's just cocaine. That's one drug, 2 tons. Yet, you know, politicians want to continue to block marijuana because marijuana is just some, you know, horrible stage 2 or stage 3 drug. Trump is in it for himself and his family. I would agree. Trump's in it for his vanity. He everything he does is to get the recognition that comes with it. At the end of his 2 terms, because he's gonna get reelected. Joe Biden is a fucking joke. But at the end of his 2 terms, he will. That's all he'll talk about for the rest of his life is about his 2 terms and what he accomplished. Again, I'm not a Trump supporter. As a human being, I think he's garbage. But it's definitely the blueprint for what this country needs is a businessman, someone who's not a career politician. These career politicians have no interest in change, and they have no interest in doing anything that's going to benefit the rest of this country. They themselves are in it for themselves and what they can increase their own net worth. Tell me how the Clintons went in with like a sub-$1 million net worth, and now they're worth insane amounts of money. There's no reason any of these politicians should be becoming millionaires while they're politicians. I'm sorry. Do I think he's trying to bring down the deep state? I think he's trying to expose people that have been pretending to be what they're not. I don't know that he's necessarily exposing if by deep state you mean, the government Illuminati, I don't know. I definitely think if he was trying to bring down the deep state, he would be exposing more of what the Obama administration did, what Snowden has exposed, which is the government essentially spying on citizens. Because I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. What Snowden exposed. I think there's more, and I think if Trump really was trying to bring down the deep state, that he could. I think he has the power to and would say more. What I do think Trump is trying to do, though, is expose these career politicians for the corrupt individuals they are. He's exposing Biden's corruption. I don't think that he would approach that any differently if Joe Biden wasn't running. If Joe Biden wasn't running for president, I still think he would have said something about it. I still think he would have said, hey, we need to be looking into the fact that a company that Biden is sending foreign aid to, had sent foreign aid to, his son's working there. And had the person who was investigating his son fired before they would give him that foreign aid. So tell me how Joe Biden isn't being investigated for treason. Literally in bed with foreign politics, giving foreign aid to a company his son is employed at. If that isn't an abuse of power, then I don't know what is. But I think what's going on here is both the far left and the far right are losing the middle, and more so the far left, because the more they come out with these torches and pitchforks with no results, they keep going as hard as they can after Trump, and really it's just been a waste of taxpayer money. All of it has been a waste of taxpayer money. And all of these things that come out are distractions from the fact that the government is mismanaging, misusing our taxpayer money. I think that the American people have a right to know what government spending looks like. And I think if people did, they'd be really fucking upset. There'd be a lot more protesting going on, not just over racial injustice, but people would be protesting the government. And I think that'd be good for the United States. I think that term limits need to be established with politicians. No politician should be a politician for 30, 40 years. That's ridiculous. Especially when you consider that person is representing generations that they have no connection to. Why the far left is crying out how horrible Donald Trump is for being an old white man and racist, yet they're literally electing an old white man who has shown nothing but impropriety when it comes to women, and especially underage women, has shown no moral standard giving foreign aid to a company his son works for. It's just more of the same. It's all more of the same. And until we stop electing old white men into politics and nothing but old white men, it'll always be nothing but the same. We have to start getting younger people in here that know how to communicate and identify with the younger generation. That it will always be more of the same. I don't think any politician, there's a floor. You have to be like 35 years old to be the president, but I don't think that there's a ceiling. There's no age ceiling. So how is it that a 70-year-old man, especially look at Joe Biden? If Joe Biden's not running for president, we're recommending him being evaluated for assisted living. Because he is very clear he does not have his faculties about him. And destroying the system, I think the government is a beautiful thing. I think on paper it's a beautiful thing. But there's no checks and balances. I don't think the system needs to be destroyed. I think the people that are within the system need to be purged out. These career politicians need to be removed. Anyone who's been in politics for more than 8 years needs to be removed. Joe Biden's talking about how he's going to change the system. He's going to change everything. He's been a part of the problem for the last 30 plus years. How do you expect someone who's been a part of the problem to be a part of the solution? There should be no such thing as a career politician. Bernie Sanders has literally been working the system to his benefit for, 30, 40 years now? I think we need more business people in the government, because essentially that's what the government. Do I believe in it, or do I believe it exists? I don't believe in a new world order. Do I believe that there is a movement out there, that George Soros and the Rothschilds? Yes, I do believe that those things exist. I do believe that they want there to be a new world order, one government, one currency, one bank. Essentially, what they're trying to do is create socialism, spread socialism, which is socialism is a nice word for communism. And the only people that benefit in a socialist world are the elite. Go look at socialist countries like China, like Venezuela. Who are the only people that benefit in those systems? The elite, because they're the only ones that don't have to play by the rules. Our elite are already not playing by the rules. So when Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or any part of this new world order get into power, they will be the only ones who benefit. The whole idea is that everyone will benefit, universal health care, everyone will make the same amount of money, is bullshit. Because that is not how it works. Literally all of us will be working for the elite, and the elite will be the only ones not playing by the rules, that the rules will not abide for. And then as soon as have all of our guns stripped from us, all of our power stripped from us, then it'll all be over. As soon as the government takes our guns from us, it is all over. An interesting thing I read on the Daily Wire, which, again, I'm not a Republican. I don't lean left or right. I believe in America. I believe in Americans, and I believe in freedom. But an interesting thing headline I read on the Daily Wire: the left's willingness to tolerate violence should frighten everyone. And I think that is 100% accurate. The left will tolerate violence as long as it's on their side, directed away from them. That's why you don't see them condemning, the assault on police or law enforcement. It is why you see them not condemning assault on innocent, white and other minorities, or even black on black crime. You won't see them denouncing rioting and destruction and looting, because they find that is a, the means justifying the ends justifying the mean, and that should frighten everyone, because if they are willing to do that, to turn the blind eye to violence now, they'll turn the blind eye when police roll in to enforce curfews, when military rolls in to take our guns from us. That it should frighten everyone, what the left is willing to let slide, what they're willing to condone, should frighten all of us. And something that I think, kind of touching back to LeBron, I think of equal importance, because I think that racial injustice is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed. I don't necessarily agree with defunding police. I don't necessarily agree with all what Black Lives Matters is demanding be done from this, but I think that something needs to be done, and I think a lot of it comes down to political reform, judicial reform, but of equal importance, child trafficking. 460,000 children in the United States alone. That's just children, not counting adult women, adult men. But 460,000 children went missing last year in the United States alone, and that seems to be about a yearly number that's slowly going up. And global injustices, what's going on in China. There's a very scary movement going against Christians in China right now, where they're being captured, beaten, and tortured until they renounce Christianity. And it's insane. And I think that once we do get past this racial injustice and we do get resolution, we do see change, it's time to start turning our eyes to of equally important issues. How many innocent black people were killed last year, and how many innocent children were kidnapped last year? I think those numbers would blow people away if they saw, the difference. I think the problem with racial injustice is that there's no punishment for law enforcement when they fuck up. There's no punishment for judges who are issuing longer sentences to minorities than white people. And there's no accountability for politicians who've done nothing for police reform. Obama was in office for 8 years, and so far Trump has signed into more police reform than Obama ever did. So there's some other stuff that we're allowing ourselves to be distracted from. And I think it's very telling when George Soros donates $220 million to the Black Lives Matter movement, that there are people funding distractions. And the moment that child trafficking and pedophilia gets exposed in this world, heads are going to spin. And the most important thing we can do as Americans, as humans, as brothers and sisters, the biggest thing we can do is be in unity, because we're going to have to be unified when we turn our attention to the elite. When we bring this broken system down, we have to be unified. Black, white, Latino, Asian, globally, we have to be unified. We the people, not the elite, we the people have to be unified. I believe all of that horrifying shit happens. I believe all of it. In Africa, albino children are mutilated because they believe that their blood and their substance is magical. So I can only believe the horrifying things that are done to these missing children, missing men and women. Unspeakable horrors. But we're focusing on individuals who have put themselves in a position where police officers made mistakes where they did, you know, in the case of George Floyd, that officer was 100% in the wrong. Was definitely what spearheaded all of this. But in the case of Rashard Brooks, you know, we all know that when it comes to any interactions with police, that you comply, because it's not safe to not comply. That's why when I'm pulled over, I comply. As a white man, I comply. I'm not giving this cop any reason to arrest me, to get physical with me, or to shoot me. And every single one of these situations comes up, and it's just more and more of a distraction. You know, where we are allowing ourselves to become emotional about this and retaliate. You know, rioting and looting. You know, we're reacting with emotion and not in solidarity. You know, the civil rights movement was done peacefully, and that's the only way change gets made. Because when people who are on the fence about whether or not they want to whether or not they want to join this cause, they are less compelled to when the media, who's playing both sides here, when the media exposes the rioting, the looting, the violence, people can't get on board with that. And again, there's people who are fueling that. There are people who are donating to the Black Lives Matter movement while still trying to undermine its movement by promoting destruction, sending Antifa, who are on the payroll, sending in an Antifa to promote violence and destruction. There's a reason why they're supporting you, is because they're trying to undermine the movement in the first place. If Trump gets people, it's not over yet. You think Trump? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't stop at just the Democrats, because it's on both sides. There's corruption on both sides. There's been a lot of Republicans who have benefited from insider information. When the pandemic hit, you saw a lot of politicians on both sides dumping stocks. And explain to me how politicians owning hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of stocks is not some form of corruption. You know, this whole thing has to be brought down, you know, on both sides. It's global. It is. It's 100% global. If you watch the Netflix documentary Dirty Money, there's a very interesting and telling story from the Malaysia IMDb story. I think if a lot of people saw that, they'd realize that same shit is going on here in America and all over the globe. All over the damn globe. That the government takes our tax money. They send $40 billion to this company in Ukraine. They do whatever they do with it, send it to someone else, so next thing you know, it comes back to its original location as only $20 billion. Where did the other $20 billion go? It got siphoned out here and there into people's pockets. It's a global issue. It is 100% a global corruption. And unfortunately, you have organizations like the United Nations where the corruption breeds. The United Nations really had the potential to be the greatest organization this world has ever seen, and instead it's just become part of a global problem. A little bit more sports related. Joe Kelly, relief pitcher for the Dodgers. The man. I don't know if any of you saw the news. 8-game suspension for throwing behind and his antics. Teej. Joe Kelly threw behind a couple Houston Astros batters, and after striking out Carlos Correa, jawed at him, and by jaw I mean pretty much called him a baby. And one thing I'd like to say is I did not understand Joe Kelly going after the Astros. One, because he wasn't on that Dodgers team that got cheated out by the Astros in that World Series. But also, he was on the team the following year that had Alex Cora and accusations of them cheating. So I didn't understand Joe Kelly doing it, but I still love Joe Kelly for doing it. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. He also played on the Red Sox who cheated. Now, don't get me wrong, that Red Sox team was loaded. That team, I still think, was going to win that year anyways. But now it makes me a little more pissed to see them have. I think they beat the Yankees 17-2 in that first playoff game. It immediately like raises red flags to me. Okay, our pitching staff wasn't that bad. Who's the best player on the Yankees right now? I think it's Gleyber Torres. I think he's the best player on that team. But I think DJ LeMahieu is the best value on that team for what he's, what his contract is, what he brings to the team, the versatility. I think DJ LeMahieu is the MVP. I think Gleyber Torres is the best player on the team, but I think the biggest star is Aaron Judge. I hope that the Giancarlo Stanton contract doesn't prevent us from being able to re-sign Aaron Judge, because he is probably the game's biggest draw right now. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All the pitchers that have, I'm trying to remember. There was the one pitcher that Freddie Freeman knew that got shelled by the Astros, and then sent down to the minors and never brought back up. And the fact that the Astros didn't have any players suspended, the organization got fined money and draft picks. The fact that none of these players did any kind of time. Alex Rodriguez missed a season and a half for steroids that they didn't catch him in the act. They just did it retroactively. So explain to me how none of these Astros players did any time, not even a half season suspension, which is what they really deserved, was a half season suspension at a minimum, if not a full year. I mean, they suspended AJ Hinch and the GM. What did the Astros do? So the Astros had a cheating scandal back in 2017. Well, they just got exposed this last year, but back in 2017, they were using the camera out in center field to record pitching signs, and then relaying it to a TV in the dugout, where they would either bang on a trash can to let them know either fastball or off-speed pitch was coming, or they'd whistle. And so stealing signs electronically, which is frowned upon. If a guy at second base manages to steal your sign, that's one thing. But to use a camera in center field to steal signs and report it back to the batters is one of the biggest cheating scandals in baseball in a long time. Probably the biggest one since steroids, and before that, Pete Rose. So the fact that none of these Astros players, Altuve, Bregman, Correa, yeah, exactly. That's the fact that Pete Rose still is not allowed in the Hall of Fame. The fact that Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens are not going to make the Hall of Fame because of steroids. Meanwhile, the Astros, they've been exposed for their home and road splits, where on the road they were abysmal. At home, their batting averages were MVP caliber. The fact that these guys aren't even missing a single game over this means that baseball has to police this themselves. They have to, pitchers do have to hit these. They're obligated now to hit these batters, because the Major League Baseball isn't going to do anything about it. So that leaves now baseball to police itself. So I had no problem with Joe Kelly zipping a couple at these Astros hitters. I had no problem with him mocking them going off the field. But Correa, Bregman, Altuve, and any other hitter found being a part of this all should have gotten at least a year-long suspension. I mean, shit, back in the Black Sox days, those players were banned for lifetime for throwing the World Series, which is essentially, what the Astros did, but in their favor. They cheated in their favor. How is that any different? And those guys receive lifetime bans. Shoeless Joe Jackson, lifetime ban. Meanwhile, none of these Astros players are going to serve a single fucking day on suspension. Yeah. And that is a lot of people's gripe with steroids. Some of these guys that get popped for steroids, you're costing someone else a job because they couldn't keep up with you, that you outperformed them and you got the roster spot. But you're also talking a lot of now for these guys, these young players doing steroids. Some of these younger guys who are doing steroids, especially from the Dominican Republic, Cuba, any of these Southern American countries. They're trying to escape something. Thank you for the host, Teach. Appreciate you, bud. But the whole situation was mishandled. The Astros should have been heavily punished for what they did. The fact that A.J. Hinch and the general manager were the ones that were suspended for a year and fired blows my mind. Because to me, especially, you're holding them accountable because they should have known about it. But what about the players that actually had something to do with it? I don't auto post in the Discord. I'm a little unfamiliar with how to do that, Tej. I did post in the stream thing that I was going live, but I don't know. I haven't been able to figure out how to set it up automatically. But I appreciate you, man. But Joe Kelly's the man. I think 8 games was way excessive in a 60-game season. Hell yeah, man. I appreciate you. But the fact that he got suspended 8 games in a 60-game season is ridiculous. I think a 1 to 3 game suspension would have made more sense, but 8 game suspension, absolutely ridiculous. I hope these Astros hitters get beamed all year. And I can't wait to get the free Joe Kelly T-shirt. Yeah, exactly, man. In a 60-game season, that's like a sixth of the season? Way too many games. Way too many games. And I understood they had to do it. That you can't just have guys doing what Joe Kelly did. I love what he did, but I understand from baseball you can't have every pitcher doing that. It's bad for the game, but 8 games? That's crazy. That's crazy. He didn't even hit anyone. I could understand if he, nailed Bregman in the head. I could understand that maybe. I can understand if Bregman took a really bad injury and was out for half the season, concussed or whatever. I can understand it. But 8 games for there's no fight, no one seriously injured. He just did what every single person in America wants to do right now, which is throw at one of these Astros hitters and let them hear it, for being fucking cheaters. Because they're fucking cheaters. I don't understand how it's any different or any less severe than, steroids or the Black Sox scandal or Pete Rose. How is Pete Rose still being kept out of the Hall of Fame, yet these Astros are still getting to play games, still getting to collect paychecks? It's a mockery of the game. Yeah, it's just all bad. Exactly, bro. Don't even get me started on Pete Rose. He bet on his own team to win. I have no problem with the guy betting on his own team to win. He's that confident in his team. Now, if Pete Rose bets against his team, that's one thing, but he bet on his own damn team. And if you want to keep him out of the Hall of Fame as a manager, I get that. But as a player, I don't get it. Ty Cobb was a known racist. Just wait till the woke left finds out that Ty Cobb was a known racist. Until they find out Babe Ruth was a known racist. And wait till the council mob comes out to get them removed from the Hall of Fame. Maybe then Pete Rose will get in. The fact that we're taking the moral high ground on Pete Rose, on Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens is ridiculous. The Hall of Fame is littered with flawed individuals. Baseball history is littered with flawed individuals. We didn't even let black players play in baseball until Jackie Robinson. And even then, Jackie Robinson went through crazy racial injustice in, probably his entire career. But let's Let's keep Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame for betting on his own team. You tell him, Major League. You show everyone that you're serious about this. But I think baseball is the most flawed of all the leagues, and that sport just needs a major shakeup to bring it up to the what other sports have to offer. In other news, the Jamal Adams New York Jets saga is over. Jamal Adams has been traded to Seattle for 2 firsts, a third, and a starting safety in exchange for Jamal Adams and a 4th rounder. I think that most people would agree the Jets came out, with a haul on this trade. You probably weren't going to get anything higher than a mid to late 20s draft pick. On Seattle side, you had to give up a lot. You gave up 2 first rounders, which could have potentially been 2 starters. 3rd rounder, which is again a productive player, maybe a starter, and your starting safety. For Jamal Adams, who is a hard-hitting, in-the-box safety, I don't think anyone would put him on the level of Derwin James. At least I'm not. I think what Derwin James brings both to the passing game and the run stop is the value there is much different, but it does bring a little bit of more legitimacy to the Seattle defense, which I think has been lacking a leader since Earl Thomas left. So I think bringing in Jamal Adams does a lot for your defense. But the Jets had to do something. Jamal Adams called out Adam Gase, and listen, Adam Gase is a nerd. He is a nerd. If you want to see something gold, go watch Adam Gase's introductory press conference when he was announced as the Jets head coach, and he looks like a fucking alien, but he's a nerd. Jamal Adams and other players have said, Adam Gase doesn't communicate much with players. Allows lets the assistants be the one to say things that the coach really should say. Not saying much during halftime, and the dude's a nerd. I was really high on him coming out of Miami. I thought what he did in Miami with Ryan Tannehill being injured almost year in and year out, what he was able to do there to have a competitive team. But he comes to New York where he's going to be under a lot of scrutiny, and you see him buckling under the pressure, and it's because he's a fucking nerd, man. And I love nerds, man. I think they're some of the best people in this world, but this is what happens when you have a nerd running an NFL franchise. He's not going to be making the tough decisions. He's not going to be the one saying hoorah. He's not going to be the one out there giving a spirited pep talk before or during the game. He's a guy that's definitely more suited for analytics. Maybe an offensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator assistant. But Adam Gase is going to flame out there, man. This is already the beginning of the end for him. He has lost that locker room and all control over it. Any player that doesn't like Adam Gase from here on out is just going to criticize him publicly and hope to get traded. And if I'm the Jets' upper management, as much as I might like Adam Gase, he's got to go. This is the beginning of the end, and this is only the longer it takes you to get rid of this guy, the longer this rebuild's going to be. And if you keep it up, it'll be something similar to what the Chargers had, where they could never get something right with Phillip Rivers and that loaded roster for years. Norv Turner, Mike McCoy, and now Anthony Lynn. Norv Turner, letting go of Marty Schottenheimer was the first mistake. Then hiring Norv Turner and sticking with him for like 7 years was the next mistake. Hiring Mike McCoy and keeping him for 2 or 3 years, I think, was their next mistake. And then by the time Anthony Lynn got along, I thought Anthony Lynn's a great head coach, awesome human being, and a great coach. It's just too late. He was the head coach they needed instead of Norv Turner. Of course, Anthony Lynn's not a candidate back then, but they hired Norv Turner over Rex Ryan. They hired Mike McCoy over a lot of coaches. And don't get me wrong, I was interested in the Mike McCoy hiring, but by the time he showed up, man, that team was just cursed, man, doomed. So I definitely think the New York situation has to have some resolution sooner rather than later. And in other news, the Pac-12 has some semblance of a players' union. Players in the Pac-12 have given a list of demands to the Pac-12 for them to return to football. And this is our first sign of these kids realizing they have the power. And that's something we need to remember as a human being. As human beings, is that we have the power. There are more of us than anyone else, any other class. This middle to lower class. We are the majority. We are the ones that need to be speaking for us. And so these kids in the Pac-12 have now given a list of demands for the Pac-12 for them to return, or else they're not going to return. They have agreed that they will all opt out of this upcoming season, which means a lot of money left on the table. Let's talk about how my boy Kirk C. Cousins is taking us all the way this year. Man, listen, I have been high on Kirk Cousins since his Washington days. I love his swag, but he's in that. There have been worse quarterbacks to take teams to the Super Bowl. Rex Grossman for the Bears back in 2003. 2003. I might be misremembering that year, but Rex Grossman, Matt Hasselbeck. Kirk Cousins is a very talented but very flawed quarterback. Do I think that Vikings team can make it to the Super Bowl? Yes. I just think that there's better Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco had a run though, man. But I would agree. I think that's probably a pretty good comparison. Joe Flacco, I don't think anyone really... I mean, the Ravens didn't even want to give him a contract till he won that Super Bowl. And then after that Super Bowl, he didn't do shit again. So do I think Kirk Cousins has the ability to get a team to the Super Bowl? Yes. But I think a lot of stuff's got to go his way. In the NFC alone, he needs the Niners to implode. He needs the Saints to falter, which I think the Saints do. I think this is the first year we see them... I think this is the first year we see the downfall of the Saints. I think next year next year's Breeze last year. But there's a lot of talent in the NFC. I think that Kirk Cousins can be anyone from the South. I think he can be anyone from the East. I think where he's going to run into problems is the West. You've got Seattle, you've got San Francisco. So I think for the Vikings to win this year, a lot of stuff has to go their way, but that's not to say that stuff can't happen. Jimmy Garoppolo could get hurt. The Seahawks could implode. The South could implode. But yeah, I would agree. Kirk Cousins under pressure has been their downfall, but they drafted Ezra Cleveland, which I think is huge. I think Ezra Cleveland might go down as one of the biggest steals in this last draft. So upgrading tackle depth was big for them. I think Justin Jefferson is going to be a really good slot receiver there for them. I just question how Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson are going to coexist in an offense together. I think a good problem to have is that you have an elite slot receiver and a young slot receiver coming in. I think Jeffers could line up as the number 2. I think Adam Thielen could line up as the number 2, and then the other one line up as the slot. I think whoever, the prime, their number 1 wide receiver, that's going to be the question mark. I think getting. Yeah, you guys did, and the thing is, you guys had it in Stephon Diggs, but Stephon Diggs didn't want to be in Minnesota, so they did the best they could, which was trade him for peak value. They got great value for trading Stephon Diggs, for a guy that was coming up on a contract, didn't want to be there. They got a really good haul for him, but I think if someone can emerge as a deep threat or even just a good red zone target as your number 1. Possession receiver. Yeah, and you're 100% right. That Minneapolis Miracle really elevated him and kickstarted his stardom. And I thought I'm high on Stephon Diggs. I don't get how a little guy like him is productive as he is, but man, is he electric. And it is a shame that it didn't work out there, especially because if you can keep Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson is your slot, and Adam Thielen's your number 2, and then who's that guy? Kyle Rudolph as the tight end, Dalvin Cook running back. That is an absolute offensive juggernaut right there. So I think losing Stephon Diggs is going to be huge. Do I think that Minnesota now tanks? Hell no. I actually think that they're the best team in the North right now. I think they win that division this year. The Bears are still garbage. They were right there on the cusp, and Mitchell Trubisky didn't progress. They traded multiple first-round draft picks for Khalil Mack, who is great, but just to me does not fit that system. They brought him in thinking he was the last piece they needed to make a run, but Mitchell Trubisky, in my opinion, took a step back. Aaron Rodgers is what I believe is his last year in Green Bay. So right now, this year and the next 2 years are Minnesota's to lose in that division. If they can somehow avoid Tom Brady and avoid San Francisco until the NFC Championship game, I think that goes a long way. Yeah, they got another running back, and they didn't really draft any wide receivers or linemen in the first 3 rounds that are going to make any kind of an impact. So they're going to be good. I don't think that they win the division this year. I think Aaron Rodgers has no motivation to take any chances. A guy in his face, he's not going to finish that throw. He's going to throw it away. He knows his days are numbered there. So I just don't see Aaron Rodgers coming in and giving us a peak performance this year. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder, but we're not going to see anything we haven't seen for the last 3 years with Aaron Rodgers. So it's still a decent division. I mean, shit, even the Lions are going to take a couple games off of people this year, but this is really Minnesota's division to lose. And they obviously have the Saints number. I think they just need to avoid Tampa Bay and the Niners before the NFC Championship game. And then if they get there and somehow the Buccaneers knock off the Niners or Seattle knocks off the Niners, it really gives them a good shot. Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at what the Lions have done the last couple of years with nobody at quarterback. I think Matt Stafford, you had to trade that guy already. They really needed to trade down in this last draft because the guy they drafted, Jeff Okudah, would have been available there. They could have taken anything from the Chargers or the Dolphins to trade down. They could have accepted an extra 7th-round pick. They didn't get anything for it, and they ended up drafting the same guy they would have at 3 that they would have at 6. I think one big thing, Matt Patricia's got to be out in Detroit. I don't think he's the guy there. Matt Stafford, he's got to go. They really need to hit the reset button there in Detroit because that's just a mediocre bottom-tier team that's not really going anywhere. I don't think they got enough for Darius Slay either. Considering what guys are going for right now, which is really strange because DeAndre Hopkins got traded for a 2nd rounder from Arizona, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. Stephon Diggs got traded for like a first, third, fifth, and seventh. And DeAndre Hopkins has been probably the most productive wide receiver for the last 5 years. But I think the NFC will again be the more interesting, deeper conference. You figure, I mean, every division has probably 2 teams that could make the playoffs. Which I don't remember is are they talking about, or is this the year of the expanded playoff? I think they've been talking about it. I don't think they've agreed on it because I don't think teams want to give up the first round bye. I know they discussed ways of making it to where only the top seed got the bye. And there was a bigger discussion about the first round. The first round, no team would get by, and I don't think any of these teams that, especially you look at like teams like New England, New Orleans, who usually get first round byes every year. Those teams don't want to give that up. I've seen a lot of mock power rankings out there that are just absolutely disrespectful. Man, I'm not putting any stock in any power rankings right now, man. Everyone and these top 100 players are rankings are absolute garbage. I'm not putting any stock in any of these mock drafts. If you've got a mock draft out there, I'm sorry, it's probably garbage. Because I've not seen a good one. I haven't. Shout out to Catch the Blitz, man. Your guys' fucking power rankings on individual players, teams have been garbage. I love following your page for the memes, but man, are your power rankings fucking garbage, man. Whoever's over there, catch the Blitz. You need to fire your social media guy. Any esports stuff people want to talk about? I'm really concerned about Cloud9's league team. 4 losses in the last 4 weeks. That is definitely concerning, but as we're gearing up for playoffs, I'd rather them go through these now because I think they will bounce back for playoffs. But it has to be a concern that, like yesterday's game against Golden Guardians, it seemed like that was a game where they really were trying to win versus like the game against Team Liquid last weekend. Yeah, like their game against Cloud9 or their game against Team Liquid last week, they were trying a different team comp, and I like that for 2 reasons. One, they're trying something new, and number 2, they're trying it against someone they expect to see in the finals this summer playoffs. So not really showing your hand, not giving them something to think about when you play them in the playoffs. You run a comp that you actually think you might be playing in the playoffs. When it comes time for playoffs, if that shit didn't work, or even if it did work, you're giving them a blueprint of what you're going to be running. So running that Sona Lux comp, I liked because it was trying something new, but it was also something that you're not really showing your whole playbook for what Team Liquid can expect in the playoffs. But I definitely think in their losses, I didn't watch all of the Team Liquid game, but all the other losses I've seen, and they don't look like they're all on the same page. They don't look like they got their foot on the pedal. So I really would like to see them clean up their act before playoffs. I do think that we are seeing some improvement from some of these mid upper teams. TSM has been looking a lot more aggressive. Still making a lot of mental mistakes, but I think TSM is showing some signs of life. I think FlyQuest's win yesterday was huge. I think they look like an absolute juggernaut. Just absolutely knowing that, okay, we win this year, no problem, just going all in was really exciting to see. So I'm still high on FlyQuest. I don't think that they have what it takes to beat Cloud9 or even a Team Liquid in a playoff series, but I definitely like the direction FlyQuest is going, and I really have to give props to that coaching staff. I think as they get more talented players in there, that team will be a team to be reckoned with for a while. I still feel a lot of those other teams are pretenders, though. To me, right now, the top half of the league is in this order: Cloud9, Team Liquid, FlyQuest, and then TSM. All these other mid-tier teams, Golden Guardians, Dignitas, those teams are still pretenders. They might take a series off of a TSM but I don't think that any of those surprise teams, are making it to the finals. I think Worlds will be interesting. I think it will be. I think TSM falters in the playoffs. As much as I love Bjergsen and would love to see TSM finally do something, finally get to Worlds, after I think it's been, 3 years with no Worlds appearance, which probably is their longest stretch of no Worlds appearances ever. While I'd like to see TSM make Worlds, I do have a feeling it's going to be Cloud9, Liquid, and FlyQuest. I am excited to see when we finally see some sort of a real Valorant Pro League. I've been watching some of T1's players, a couple 100 Thieves players, and so I'm really excited to see when that Pro League finally becomes what, CSGO's, what is it, ESL? Because to me, Valorant is the next esports game. Especially as they get more operators, I think that's going to be huge. Right now, there's not enough operators to keep viewer interest long term, but if they keep like they said and now release a new operator or a new agent every patch, for a year, or is it for a year? I think it's for a year, something like that. That game will be a lot more interesting, because right now everything you pretty much know what a lot of classes are going to do, but as we get more introduced, I think it will, especially with agents that synergize better together, it'll make that game a lot more interesting to watch. That's about all I have for today's podcast. The only other thing I didn't cover, I decided not to, some local politics. I might do that one a little bit closer to November, because right now, what's the point of ranting about this shit if no one's going to remember it come November? But I'd love to see more questions. I'm Cleary joking, and Tej, thank you so much for coming by and asking questions. Having participation from viewers is huge. Gives me something to talk about. Doing these solo shows, they're a lot different than when I have Aaron with co-hosting. Our last podcast went 3 hours, and we probably could have gone longer. With the introduction of sports returning, I am going to be switching, and I'll make these, I'll make the announcements to the social media as well. We will be going and doing this stream on the weekdays now too. I think we'll go something like Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and we'll see how those go. Are we playing games? Some games or what? I'm down, Tej. I've got Valorant. I've got. Oh no, I don't want no one going alt left on here, man. If you believe in left ideas, I would love to have you on and just pick your brain. But I really don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. But I'd love to have some people on. Tej, I'll have you on as a guest one of these days when I can figure out how that works on stream. I'm kind of a tech dumb. So I'm still learning how to set this stream up, and I'm excited once I start learning more about this, having guests on, knowing how to do them, via Skype or Discord or whatever. But keep an eye out. Also, we are doing hat giveaways, multiple hat giveaways. One at 100 followers on Twitch, one at 100 subscribers on YouTube, and one for 100 followers on Facebook. And we'll keep doing those. We'll keep upping these goals. We'll be giving out hats regularly for viewers, followers, subscribers. So keep an eye out. Follow our social media. And as always, stay safe out there. And remember, we're all in this together.